Hey guys, welcome back to False9 FM. I'm going to deliver the first of many tutorials today, and it's all about FM21 tactics and why yours might not be working. Chances are it's got nothing to do with your system. Plug and play tactics are a real big thing over the last couple of years. NAP systems and various others have become quite popular, and yet I still get people coming to me complaining that the system doesn't work, it's broken, it's rubbish, when there's loads of other people enjoying great success. But today I'm going to go through all of them and explain exactly what you need to do to troubleshoot your save. So we have player suitability, match preparation, team cohesion and tactical familiarity, team morale, and form and momentum. We're going to go through all 5 of those sections one by one, have a look inside the game itself, try and understand exactly what makes each section tick and what you need to do to fix all those issues that you might have in your save. So let's jump into FM right now. Right, let's kick things off with player suitability. Are your team capable of playing the positions and the roles? We're going to kick it off with positional familiarity. It's those little green dots we used to see, if all was well, last year in the game. You're going to have to click into the player now to see them, but as you can see, Ryan Harkin is a natural striker. He can't play another position. If I tried to play him anywhere else, he would be ineffectual. He would not be any good in the system. Of course, he would play within his attributes, so if he was fast, he'd be dribbling fast, but he would not be an effective piece within the system. He would end up breaking how the tactic is meant to work. Likewise, another example, Kalu, he is a natural as a right winger and a striker, but he's only competent at MR. So if I wanted to use a 4-4-2 and pull him back, he could do the role, but he wouldn't perform as well as he would pushed higher up. Now what I tend to do at the start of a save is I'll jump into team reports, which is here, sorry, and I go to squad depth. You can pull up the tactic or you can view the full team and you can get a gauge of exactly what you're working with. Obviously I've bought players for my team based on the system rather than the other way around, so my depth is actually really good based on all these star ratings. Yours may not be, and it may give you a good indication that actually you should be going for a different formation and going down a different route. That brings us nicely into role ability. Now note, I said ability, not familiarity. Role familiarity does not exist. All that FM does is they assess the attributes a player has, and then it spits out a rating based on those attributes. A player cannot learn a role like it can a position. He can merely improve the attributes and ability he has to play within that role. So take Carlo for instance, he is a 4-star winger. That's because of the attributes he has, not because of how well he has adapted and learned the role. As an inside forward, he's only 2.5 star. Now that's because he's right-footed. He can't be cutting inside because he's not left-footed, so that's where attributes don't come into the equation. We then have role functionality. Now that is a little bit of a twist on what we were just talking about. I am now referring to not what your assistant and your backroom staff tell you with these star ratings, but your knowledge of what the system is meant to do, and this is where you need to think a little bit. I know that I'm playing a direct system with this 4-2-4, where we look for the ball in behind. So while I may have a striker who is rated as being 4 stars and advanced forward, but if he has terrible acceleration and pace, and I'm trying to find that ball over the top and in behind, naturally, he's not going to function correctly in the role I want him to play within the system. So just because my assistant tells me he should be able to do it, doesn't mean he will. You need to understand what you're asking of the players and whether they can do it or not. You need to understand things like player instructions as well. For instance, I'm very fortunate to have a player called Tivy who is excellent with his long shot ability. Now within the advanced playmaker role, they are told to shoot less often anyway, but if he was within a role where he had free roam to shoot whenever he wants, and you have a player with 2 long shots, that's going to be a problem. You're going to be giving away possession, and if you keep blaming the tactic for that happening, well, that's not the issue. The issue is the player shooting from range and he can't shoot from range. So you pull all those components together. Can he play the position? If he can't, is he going to be misplacing passes? Is he going to be making the right runs? What's his defensive positioning going to be like? Can he play the role? Does he have the attributes? Does he have passing if he's meant to be a playmaker, along with vision and the agility to get about the pitch? If he's a striker, does he have the speed, the finishing, the composure, the anticipation and the movement to score the goals? All these things are so important, and you've got to think about them when you're selecting a system. And just as important is the final point for player suitability, and that is the style of play that you're going to use within a system. Think about it. If you're going to use a tiki-taka style where you're passing the ball around, do you really want a player that can't pass but is really fast and really dominant physically? Of course you don't. You want a pressing style of play for a team like that. If you're going to be playing a lower tempo, shorter passing, maybe a 4-2-3-1, and you have players that can't pass and have poor technique, you're going to be misplacing passes left, right and centre, giving the ball away, and it's going to look like the system just doesn't work, but it's the players. Likewise, if you're trying to play a real pressing game and you don't have players with aggression, teamwork, work rate and good physicals, that ain't going to work. They're not going to have the physicality to get about the pitch, the whereabouts to actually make those challenges and put in the work to actually win the ball back and then hit on the counter. Again, it's going to look like the system doesn't work, but it's not the system, it's your players. So you've got to understand what the system's trying to do. Do your players have the ability to do it? And moving on to section number 2, this is arguably the biggest culprit for tactics not working. It's your training. Do not leave this to your assistant manager, guys, because they don't schedule any match preparation, and match preparation is key. By using match preparation, not only are we going to be focusing on the team's cohesion, which is extremely vital, like we said, tactical familiarity is pretty much covered almost across the board, but you're also focusing on the player's individual attributes. So if you set the player up within his individual training to train in a role, he is going to focus on the attributes within that role. So he's actually going to be training fully focused on exactly what you want him to do. That's why match preparation is an absolute godsend that really we should be doing a lot more of. So with the attacking movement, you're going to be focusing as well on the attacking movement and the passing for the upcoming match. So that's for the next game you're going to be playing. Defensive positioning and marking is on the defensive shape. And then if you do teamwork, it's not quite as good because you don't get those individual roles trained in there, but it is really, really good for team cohesion. And also if you're trying to play a pressing style, it's fantastic for that in the upcoming game. Teamwork and pressing will work very well. So if you're coming up against a team you might struggle against, you could schedule defensive shape and teamwork. That will work a charm in terms of getting your team prepared for the match. Right guys, let's pull up a card right here and I'll quickly go through the impacts of each part of the card and explain to you what they all mean so that you yourself can go through, have a look at other training cards and decide how you want to do your training as well, because it is a personal thing at the end of the day. So upcoming match, that will literally train for the upcoming match. So it won't affect attributes and it won't affect player development, it'll affect your performance within the game. Attacking movement and passing on this card, which is attacking, clear what that's going to do. Tactical familiarity, that is a no-brainer. It is going to get those little bars up that you see within the tactics screen that explain how well your players understand the system and how well they're going to work within it. Team cohesion, that means that it increases the team's cohesion, how they work as a unit and how they're going to perform together as a team, their understanding, their positioning, where they're going to be on the pitch, that sort of thing. Attributes, this is one that is really, really misunderstood. In some cards, like for instance in overall, it will list a set of attributes because that is the attributes it targets within that training unit. The best way to do it for me is through the match preparation, and then you're targeting the players' individual roles. Like we said, that is where you set the role up within the player's individual role training. It's going to target those attributes that are within that role. That's for development, guys. That's not for role familiarity, remember, because that is not something that exists. It will increase their attributes through development targeting those attributes. Just wanted to really drill that home because I don't want any misconceptions coming as a result of this video and me talking about something that's slightly off-piste. Anyway, back to the video. In pre-season, you want to be scheduling lots of match tactics. Again, it doesn't do many of the attributes, so you don't want to overdo this, but you definitely need to schedule it, otherwise the team aren't going to get familiar with the tactic as quick as they would. So let me explain this just one more time. Let's assume right now I'm mid-season, I'm with a semi-professional team, I've got a game on the Saturday. What am I going to do? I'll probably have an overall or a physical session there on the Tuesday just to keep everyone happy. Most likely physical because I do like my physical attributes. On this day here, on the Thursday in the first session, we're going to go on attacking movement because I like to really score goals within my system. I also want to work probably, I would say, on defensive shape. There we go, because that's going to cover the defensive side as well. And then in this little slot here, I'd most likely pick based on where we are in the season. If it's quite early on, I may schedule more match tactics if I feel like the familiarity needs improving. But if that's not the case, I'd probably even look at just doing a little bit of teamwork because I do use a pressing system. But you definitely want to be using the defensive shape and the attacking movement. I would also highly recommend, if you don't like scheduling friendlies, which to be honest, at lower league level, guys, you should be scheduling as many as you can because you get a lot of money from them and it really does help the team become cohesive and better within their roles. But you can do match practice. That is fantastic because it works players in their individual roles. Again, remember, we're targeting exactly what we want to with that. It does loads for tactical familiarity. It greatly increases happiness and team cohesion, sharpness. It does everything. Yes, you're going to be more at risk of injury, so I probably wouldn't schedule it alongside some overall training, but it's well worth looking into. But like I said, defensive shape, attacking movement, teamwork, match tactics, make sure you are scheduling them. Moving on to section number 3. Yes, it seems like we've missed one out. That's because I put team cohesion and tactical familiarity within the training because it's very, very relevant. We're now on to morale, guys, and this one is, again, very, very important. Your team is in a slump or you've just taken over a team that's maybe got relegated and they've got very poor morale. It's so hard to judge a tactic, it really is, because when a team isn't happy, they don't perform. It is that simple. If you've ever had a striker who's gone on a goal drought and you've wondered why and thought, well, it must be the tactics gone stale, 9 times out of 10, that is not the case at all. He's probably started going on a goal drought, in which case you need to criticise his form. So Ned Dry, let's click into him. If we go on to discuss and warm player, I can criticise him over his training, the last game and his conduct. If I go into criticism of his last game, I'm not going to do it because he actually scored 4 goals, but I can basically say that you played badly. In the future, I need you to lead the line more effectively. Or if he's not been hitting the back of the net, you can mention that as well, and he will generally respond well and say, I agree with you, boss. And what that does is it gives him a kick up the arse in the next game to actually do something about it. Just as important is praising them when they play well. This is so important. After every single game that I play, I will go into the match ratings and check who actually played well. So if we go into the schedule, for instance, the last game was against St. Helens, and I can see from my screen here, James Kalu was fantastic. I know for a fact I praised him anyway, so I'm not going to go doing that again. But Robbie Dunn also played well, and I forgot to tell him that. So let's see if it'll let me do it now while we're on. Praise player, praise last game. You were superb in front of goal, which he was. I appreciate that, boss. Thank you very much. His morale has gone up very slightly. Dunn displayed positive body language throughout the conversation. The apparent positive body language at the end of the conversation seems to have reflected in his overall morale. And the happier a player is, the better he will perform. So you constantly need to manage that morale. Dunn's been fantastic all season. Now you may think that just because he's playing well, he should have good morale anyway, but it's not always the case. Praising them always ups it even more, but only if they have played well. Training, that can be praised and criticised, but you just need a constant dialogue all the time with your players. It's the same as your team talks that affect morale. Really important to get those right before a game, whether you're going to tell them to be complacent, tell them to do it for the fans, whatever the team talk is going to be. We're not going to go into that because that's a separate video. Getting those right is vital. If you don't know what you're doing, leave it to the assistant manager on the team talks would be my advice, because 9 times out of 10 they do get it right. The other thing you can use to try and manage it mid-match is the shouts. It's a little bit glitchy this year, so you need to be a bit careful, because I found that actually it takes a couple of minutes to 10 minutes for the shout to take effect, at which point the circumstance of the match could have changed. But very often if a team is playing poorly, I find the encourage shout quite good. I'm not a fan of the berate and things like that, because if you get the timing wrong, it can really hamper your team. And if you don't know your team's personalities and how they're going to react to that sort of thing, it can cause more harm than good. And remember guys, you can always come back to this screen here, which will tell you everything you need to know, the morale and how it's all comprised. We're in happiness and we're in dynamics here. So overall happiness, you can see a lot of the team here for me are delighted, which is wonderful. You can see how that affects their morale and where it all comes from. And obviously if there's a certain area where they're struggling, then you can try and address that. Whether it's going to be training, maybe you need to address their individual training, or you need to address the training schedules. They will soon tell you what the issue is. Playing time, management, it's all there to look at. And that's all this game is, guys, using the tools that SI give you to try and manage your team best. And moving on to the final point, guys, it's a bit of a null and void one, which is momentum and form. You don't need to do anything for this as such, but you need to recognise that any system is going to look great when you're in a fantastic run of form. You could switch your system halfway through and you'll probably carry on playing extremely well. Doesn't mean the system works exceptionally well, it just means your team is carrying you forward. Likewise, if you've got a team that is perfectly suited to a tactic, it may not be the greatest tactic in the world, it may not work for everybody, but the very fact that you've got the most suitable players for every single role and you're managing their morale and all the other bits that come with it, turn the tactic into a god tactic. That's the difference, and that's why I always say it's not always your tactic. So yeah, back to that point, think about form, guys. Have you been in a slump? If you have, don't judge the system straight away. Always look at your team cohesion, your familiarity, your happiness, all these different things, and consider form and what sort of momentum you've got behind the team. Right chaps, I've blabbered on quite a bit. I'm now going to go away, try edit this, and hopefully it comes out well and it all makes sense to you guys. If you've got any questions, jump down in the comments, I'd be happy to answer them. And please do subscribe and give us a thumbs up if you found this helpful. That'd be really helpful for me. Hit the bell button once you subscribe, that way you won't miss future tutorials when they go live. And don't forget to follow our new series, Tier 10 to the top. We're starting all the way in level 10 of English football, and we're going to try and win the Champions Leagues one day with Prestwich Hayes. Been a fantastic save so far. You've seen a few of the players and results already in this, so I'll leave you a little card up there now so that you can click on it and view the first episode. Thanks very much for watching, guys, much appreciated. Take care, stay safe, and enjoy your Christmas if I don't speak to you before then. See you later.